Guru Nation, welcome back to the show. I'm here in the office. I'm fortunate enough to be with Chris, who's analyzing stocks as we speak. That looks like an inverted triangle. I don't know what that is. It's some kind of technical analysis. But Chris, let's do some technical analysis on this question we got, okay? And I'm going to read it. Hi, I'm Mingy from South Korea. So we got viewers in South Korea, other side of the world.
Very nice.
Okay, I have a job interview next week for CRA. I'm so excited. While preparing an interview, I have a question. In my opinion, it is important for the CRO to meet the needs of the sponsor. So I'm wondering what kind of CRAs the sponsors want. What's an ideal CRA?
Well,
this is a great question.
First, let's approach it from, in my opinion, from this angle. Do you think it differs from country to country?
No, I think it's similar all across the board.
Standards are similar.
Yep.
Okay. So what is...
And by the way, I gotta say, excellent job, Mingy, writing in English. I couldn't even write one word in Korean. So props to you. Just for that alone.
Yeah, absolutely. So the question is what is the CRO looking for in a CRA?
No, what is an ideal CRA in the eyes of a sponsor? Because as you know, after the 2016 GCP revisions and updates, the FDA told the sponsors, and all regulators told the sponsors, hey, we understand you're using CROs and they're monitoring with CRAs. You, sponsor, are responsible for the work of the CRAs, even if they're not your employees.
Right.
They're employees of a CRO. So now sponsors are a lot more picky with the CRAs. They got to look, they're requesting resumes now. I know people who get hired for CROs, and then the sponsor requests to see their resumes also. Mm-hmm. So what makes, in the eyes of a sponsor, a good CRA? I have a few answers to this, but just wanted to get your thoughts.
I don't know if I have an answer to this. I mean...
I can give mine first.
What's an ideal CRA? I mean...
In the eyes of a sponsor.
I would assume somebody with a medical background.
Yeah, so I'll answer first. Because we actually talked to sponsors who are looking for this. They want problem solvers. The sponsors want problem solvers. Sponsors are not CROs. Here's the thing.
You don't think they want a robot?
No, I don't. I actually think that's the fundamental difference between a CRO and a sponsor.
Yeah.
And I actually think that's one of the reasons why there's a lack of innovation in the industry and why there is decreased efficiencies in the industry is because CROs have gotten too powerful and too big and they control too much of the process. CROs, for the most part, want robots, people who follow their SOPs, and they typically blame the sponsor for mandating those things when in reality the sponsor's not mandating.
So we know
much
a number
of these
CRAs hired directly by sponsors, right?
That's right.
So
they're much happier.
No, that's for sure. That's for sure. They're treated better.
So which one then treats like robots?
Sure, the CRO. So, but do you not think the work dynamic is essentially the same? They're just overworked at CROs.
The work dynamic is the same. I think what sponsors prefer, because sponsors are not CROs, so sponsors specialize in creating IP, manufacturing IP, delivering IP, and marketing the IP. Mm. CROs are not responsible for any of that stuff. They're just responsible for running the clinical trials.
Right.
So sponsors' core competency is different than CRO. So what sponsors actually want, in my opinion, a sponsor's ideal CRA is more of a generalist, whereas a CRO's ideal CRA is a specialist.
See, I would agree with that to an extent, right? So a very small sponsor, absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. However, I think a larger sponsor that is hiring CRAs directly, I'm going to guess they're pretty similar to a CRO.
I would disagree with you there.
Yeah?
Yeah. I might have to disagree with you there because the functions of the company is completely different.
Of course.
Completely different.
If they're in-housing everything, mm-hmm. And I don't know if Pfizer uses CROs or not.
They contract, but they've used both, but I think they're back to CROs now.
Right. Okay. So let's take something the size of Pfizer, right? Huge company, huge organization.
Yeah.
So if they're handling everything in-house, I would assume their department is similar to a CRO that's handling research, in which this is kind of segregated from the rest of the company, and the ideals of this portion of the company are different than the rest. I would just expect that they're a large institution like that is ran very similar to a CRO. That's what I would expect. Right. But I could be wrong. I don't know.
But wouldn't both sponsors and CROs both want problem solvers? Even though it sounds cliche, the thing is, with a problem solver, you go into the site, you identify an issue, and then you try to fix it with the site. And of course you document it in your report and all that stuff, but you try to fix it before you go up the chain to ask for directions.
So I think that boils down to who's the overhead, who's in charge, right? So a particular CRA who we've both worked with, Dan. I'm not going to say his last name, but
yeah,
you know the one I'm talking about.
Good name. He's got a good name.
Yeah.
A great name, actually.
Yeah, there you go. So one of his complaints, he would complain about his superiors.
Yeah.
And they don't want problem solvers because it kind of makes them look bad.
Right, but who did he work for?
He worked for a number of different organizations, right?
But always CRO.
Yeah, I believe so. Right? And then sometimes they did appreciate...
Proving my point.
But sometimes they did appreciate the problem solver. Hey, I don't know how to deal with this. You have any clue? And then, that's a great idea. So I think it really more boils down to who's your superior and are they concerned about you achieving?
Right. Well, your answer as a background in science is probably, I could see why you said that. Especially, if you can pick your ideal CRA, it would be somebody with a background in the indication that the study is going to be working on, right? But that's in the real world, you don't get that. You can't be picky.
Of course not.
There's a shortage of CRAs. So really it boils down to things like solving problems, being proactive, maybe preventing problems from happening in the first place at the site level. It's easy for CRAs to correct problems or even easier to identify problems. It's harder to prevent problems. It requires vision to be able to see, okay, this site might have a problem here. They haven't had it yet, but I'm going to step in and make sure. So I think that's my answer. I do think working for a sponsor is much different than working for a CRO.
Most likely preferable.
Yeah, and but I think you're right when it comes to the very large sponsors and the CROs and why? So you used the example of Pfizer, and I don't know anything about Pfizer.
Yeah,
but
neither do I. So.
They're probably so big that they're so siloed that their monitoring department is like its own mini CRO.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I get what you're saying too. Anything else? Ideal CRA from a sponsor perspective?
No. I mean, you have to meet the requirements of a CRO too, right? You need to be...
you got to know the fundamentals. You have to know thank you for letting me plug this. Yeah. Okay. Here, Chris, hold it. Just model it. You got to be able to know the fundamentals. The fundies.
The fundies, huh?
Anything else? Good book.
No, it's a great book.
So that's what we think. But let us know what you think in the comments. That's more important than what we think. What do you think? I want to hear what you have to say.